All right, well, welcome everyone. I am Lisa. I am the assistant librarian in the adult services, and I am going to be the panel host tonight. I'm going to introduce our authors from my left to right, and then after I just say your name, we're gonna then start right next to me, and they're gonna introduce themselves, what they brought, what they write, and perhaps a reading. Okay, so first we have Shersty Gordon. After that, we have Annika Champenois. Then we've got Hannah Schoaf Hardy, then Christopher Graham, and then Marion Scadden. So we're going to start with Shersty and let you do an introduction.
Okay, let's get you live. Hi, my name's Shersty Gordon. I am a fantasy lover, so I read a lot of fantasy and write fantasy. I am in the process of wanting to become an author and being published. I'm on the final revisions of my first book. And so for today, I have just a little short from a writing prompt that we like to do in our book group. We do writing prompts every week. So here it is. Ready, set, start, the overseer roared. Sunny bolted. Today was her chance, a chance to get a new start, a new life, and become something more than just an unwanted beggar on the street. She had been training nonstop for the past year for the pairing trials, and she would not lose. The first leg of the trials was simple, really, a race. Be one of the first 50 through the forest and to the doors of combat. Sunny smirked to herself. She had grown up on the streets, always running for her life. This would be easy. She stuck to the outer edge of the group of contestants. Too many people altogether was more of a hazard than the forest. With even strides, Sunny jumped over a small divot in the dirt and ducked under a tree branch. Her breath was calm and even. She glanced over to see a group of kids, a little younger than her, go sprawling in the dirt. The first had tripped and the others had tumbled over the first. That's why you only rely on yourself, she murmured. Sunny caught herself as she almost tumbled down a small hill and turned it into a slide. She let out a huff as she scolded herself to focus. Her breath turned more ragged as the forest became denser, and she had to duck and weave almost every step. Duck here, jump over the log, slide down the incline, over and over again until she found her center. Sooner than she would have thought, she found the trail thinning and the doors of combat came into view. With a final burst of speed, she flew towards the boundary circle, her feet pounding against the now even ground. The line that created a half circle around the doors of combat glowed a bright white, indicating the participants could still enter. With a rush of adrenaline, eyes focused only on that line, Sunny crossed the threshold and gave an inward burst of triumph. She had made it. Breathing deeply, Sunny tried to catch her breath and slow her heart as she looked around. She wasn't the first of the contestants in the ring, but she was close. Only 5 others so far had entered. 3 of the kids she didn't know. One looked younger, but the others were her age or older. Another was Agate, and the other was Arrow. Sunny scowled. Arrow was a rich kid from an old family of warriors and had been to her a group of street kids. He was straight-laced and snobbish and didn't care a damn about anyone else. Just as Sunny was thinking how annoying it would be if she was grouped with Arrow, he caught sight of her and gave a lopsided smirk. Well, 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 Arrow said as he sauntered over to Sunny. It seems like someone let some trash in. Sunny rolled her eyes. Stupid boy couldn't keep his mouth shut if his life depended on it. She ignored him. I don't know, Agate said. I would have called anyone who placed in the top 10 trash. Sunny gave Agate a small smile. She had always liked him. His family was also a warrior family, but they weren't as strict as some of the others, and they even sometimes gave food out to the street kids on holidays. Yeah, Arrow grumbled. She's always been fast, damn nuisance, but we'll just see how good she is once we're inside. Arrow leaned in toward Sunny. You should leave now before you get hurt, he half whispered. No way, Sunny said. You aren't going to scare me off. Just you wait and see. I'll do just as well as you. Arrow clicked his tongue at her before sauntering off to talk with the others. Agate gave her a small nod, but stayed where he was. With a huff, Sunny went to the opposite end of the half circle and settled in to wait for the rest of the first 50 to join them. It shouldn't be long.
Okay, Annika.
Okay, let's see. Is this on?
Anyway,
Okay. I love that. Thank you. I'm Annika Champenois. I was born in Denmark, and when I was 11, my family and I moved to Utah. Ever since I was small, I have made up stories and turned them into novels in my head and sometimes on paper. Today, I write romantic comedy. And between last year and this year, I published 2 rom-coms. Artfully Annoying is the story of Wrong Girl, the one who gets to date a great guy only to see him find and marry someone else. Then an annoying prankster pesters her to go out with him, and she finally decides the quickest way to get rid of him is to give in and date him, then wait for his dream girl to show up and take him away. Readers have loved the banter in this book, serious annoyance, craft humor, and the surprising suspense that I hint at in the book description. Walter Times 2 is a time travel romance. When a stranger shows up on her doorstep and proposes, Aurelia rightfully freaks out. Walter then tries to explain he has traveled back in time and apparently gone too far. Now he needs her to date the other Walter and fall in love. No way will she believe that ridiculous story. But there do seem to be 2 identical guys named Walter running around. She may even fall for one of him, but both, that remains to be seen.
Well, now I want to read it.
Yeah, please do. So I self-published these 2 books. So if there are any questions about self-publishing tonight, I should be able to help answer some. And essentially, self-publishing means I've started my own business. I hire my own freelance editors, my own cover designers. I do my own marketing, at least for now. I could hire someone to do that. But whether you traditionally or self-published, an author always has to do a whole lot of marketing on their own. I have several more books in the works. My 3rd book is back from the editor. It's an enemies to lovers romance. The 4th book, I just wrote the rough draft in 1.5 months, which was super exciting. That one is a mystery rom-com and the beginning of a series, and it's gonna keep going. I will read to you from Artfully Annoying, Wrong Girl's story. She has finally agreed to go on a date, an apology dinner with this annoying guy, but she knows it's a date. And so here they are. Tell me about your family, he said, as soon as we had ordered our food and sat down. Tell me about yours, I countered. I'm an orphan, he lied. I'm a foundling, I shot back. With an effort, he kept back a laugh. I have no siblings, he said, again with a look that told me he was making it up, giving me short answers so he could turn the conversation back to me. My adopted brothers are half-elves, I told him without blinking. You, of course, are a full-blood elf, he said, nodding sagely. How had we gotten into such an easy banter? If I didn't stop this, I might give him the wrong impression. Again. So, is this supposed to be an apology dinner? Because I haven't heard any apologies yet. I folded my arms across my chest in a universal gesture of waiting. Oh, yes, go ahead. He beckoned at me and folded his arms as well. My eyes widened at his audacity. I felt myself turn red, the sunset color that had inspired several of Frank's odes. I put my hands on the table and leaned forward. Sorry, you're a cad. His eyebrows rose and then fell. He looked at me in expectation, waiting for the next blow, his expression spurring me on. And I'm sorry I have to spend the evening with a pompous jerk, I finished. His brows rose again, but his eyes were dancing. I don't think pompous quite fits me. Maybe cocky is the word you're looking for. You try apologizing yourself then, I challenged. He leaned forward like I had done. I'm sorry you took so long to agree to go out with me. I sat back. This is the worst apology dinner ever.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. I just want to say I've read her other book and it's really good, so you guys should all check it out. But yeah, my name is Hannah Schoaf Hardy. I've been working on a self-help book for sister missionaries. I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Germany, and it was awesome, but it was really hard, and there's things I wish I'd known before. And so I've written a book to hopefully help other sisters be more prepared than I was. And I'm just really passionate about empowering women in general. So that's what I've been working on. And so I can just tell a little bit about it. I have not been published quite yet, but I'll just kind of share a little bit with kind of the main idea. So I'm calling my book YOMO, as in you only mission once, a spinoff of YOLO, you only live once. And sometimes you technically might go on 2 or 3 missions, but just embracing the idea of having fun as a missionary and finding joy in it, and that it doesn't have to be, super hard all the time or no fun at all. And so that's kind of what I talk about in my book. I go over things that I think are particular for sisters to know about, like how to deal with perfectionism, how to have fun, how to serve before flirt, how to follow the spirit, and just other important themes. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I've been working on. So.
Christopher.
All right. I'm Christopher Graham. I've been a fiction writer for about 12 years now. And this is technically my fourth book, a fantasy novel, The Voice of a Mute. And the other three books I've done are not really all that worth talking about. So, I really like writing fantasy and even some sci-fi. I'm working on a sci-fi movie. I'm working on the sequel to this one. Although I've written this one and I'm going to write the sequel as kind of standalone novels. So there's no cliffhangers or anything crazy like that. And this is really what I was trying to accomplish with this book was take an atheist character and a very faithful character, and by the end have the atheist be a believer and the believer is an atheist, and try to figure that out and how that happens. And so that's kind of part of what this book is about. And I will just read like the first couple pages. It was a muggy late summer afternoon, and the only thing to make it more worthy of a long nap for Dower Mawkin was the fact it was visiting day at the orphanage. He put off leaving his bed in the bunk room for as long as he could, laying on his back, head hanging over the edge to stare at the wall, only the most comfortable of positions. His lounging was interrupted as one of the younger sisters, Naya, came to stand over him. "Time to join the others," she said, and the effort to sound patient was palpable. "Fine," he hand-signed, taking a moment to let the blood rush out of his head as he sat up. "I'm still not getting adopted." "You never know." He gave her a blank look. She sniffed and strode away, motioning for him to follow. They entered the visiting room, deceptively spacious from its high ceiling, and painted to be warm and colorful, but it had been decades since the last paint job. The colors were faded and in some spots washed away altogether. It was a depressing sight, as were the rest of the orphans. The sisters certainly did their best to lighten their mood, keep the place tidy and presentable, but only so much could be done for a place that was built with the soul of mud. And yet, some might say it still looked prettier than Dower himself. It had been years since he came to understand that any effort on his part to get adopted was futile. Nobody wanted the ugly, mute 14-year-old. Just a reality he had come to accept. He didn't want anyone either. Taking to his chair in the corner, Dower tilted his head back to stare at the ceiling while trying to ignore the sounds of the other children happily interacting with the prospective parents that came through. He wondered what kind of life he could have if he could channel an emojic of some kind, a power that was gained from having an apex of emotion, which was a somewhat rare one-time event that occurred when experiencing an intense or abnormal amount of emotion associated with one of the 32 different emojics. Dower had read everything there was to know about each one from the books of the library, one of the places he spent most of his time when not trapped in the orphanage, even when there was nothing left to read. I'll stop right there.
Hi, my name is Marian Skadden. I've been writing for quite some time because I've been doing theater for so long that I wrote a lot of scripts because it was so much easier than trying to look for one that fit what I was doing. So finally it was like, oh, I have a lot of scripts here. I could do something with them. So I did. I have short scripts for 2 to 3 kids. I have 72 short and silly monos for kids or whoever. And I have quite a number of other books and collections, along with a fantasy ebook. And I've enjoyed coming up with ideas. And so I'm going to have my husband help me. I have here a couple of books, what is that called? Bookmark with a few of the books on the pictured here, and our theater stuff too while I'm at it. So here we go. Gonna make him come over and we're gonna do, okay, scripts for 2 to 3 kids, right? two people in Rapunzel. Perfect for talent shows, family get-togethers, and if you happen to be working as the theater person, it's perfect for someone just to come up with a short something. Yep, you're the prince. I'm Rapunzel, just so you know.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
was gonna
Yep,
ask which.
we're in the tower room. Oh, I start. This tower was great when I was younger, but now I'm a little bored with it. Let's be honest. I'm a prisoner of that witch, and I'm talking to myself.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair.
That's not the witch, and she's the only one who knows the password for getting into this window.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your golden hair.
How would someone else learn that code? Unless the witch told him. Why would she tell him? Maybe she told him because he's a messenger and she's trying to get a message to me.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel.
My hair isn't really golden, by the way.
Oh, sorry. What color is it?
It's brown.
Oh, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your brown hair.
Look out below! I hate this part. Ow! Ow! Ow!
What's wrong? Are you okay?
Hello? I just had someone climbing up to the window using my hair.
Oh, that was me.
Yes, I know.
I didn't think I was climbing real hair. I just thought it was a secret phrase to get a rope tossed down.
It's both. If you want to call my hair rope.
It certainly is tough as a rope. So is this where you live?
Yes, if you want to call it that.
What would you call it?
I'm a prisoner of a witch. By the way, what message did she send?
A message?
Didn't the witch send a message for me? She's the one who gave you the password, right?
Actually, I was wandering through the woods when I heard someone call out that phrase, so I headed in the right direction of the voice, and by the time I reached this tower, no one was in sight.
Okay, I'll stop there.
Oh.
It's ever so much fun. Ever so much.
That is awesome. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourselves and giving us some insights about your books. We have a very diverse crowd. There was not a lot of overlap. We're going to start with a question that comes up a lot in panels like these is writer's block. So how do you overcome writer's block? We have Chris, Marion, and Shersty that are going to share. So we'll start with Shersty since you haven't gone.
Okay. So, one of my favorite writers is Mary Robinette Kowal, and she's done podcasts and she has a whole article about this because I think it's very important to realize where your writer's block is coming from. Because there are two types of writer's block. One is there's something wrong with your story. If you're a reader and you read all the time, writers read. So you're trained to see a good story. You know when there's a good story or not. And so if you're getting bored with your story or you're not feeling it, then that usually means there's something wrong with your story. So that usually takes going out on a walk and thinking it through, sitting down and looking through it, breaking it up, taking whatever your favorite device for plotting is, whether it's a 3-part act, the yes, no, or yes, but, no, and that some authors do. There's lots of writing. Start breaking your story down, see what it is that's not working with it. But there's a second type of writer's block. That usually has to do with your life. Depression, mental health, your life is going crazy, other things like that. And no amount of trying to fix your story is going to help if that's your problem. And if that's where your problem is coming from, then you have to sit down and find out what's going on in your life and figure out how you can get your life into a better balance or help yourself so that you can get back to doing what you love.
Awesome. That is great advice. How about Christopher?
So Shersty can read minds because she said most of what I kind of wanted to say. I was actually going to say that there are two different kinds of writer's block. Although I think I was going to go in a little different direction where one version of writer's block is you're stuck in your story, which had a lot to do with what you said. And so I'm just going to defer. What you said was correct. Get out and get on a walk. Let your brain be exposed to different stimuli other than just sitting there looking at your pages. And the second writer's block, I think, is you're just not writing. It doesn't, maybe it's due to mental health and life circumstances, but sometimes you just don't have any motivation to write and you're just not getting to it. Or maybe you just feel overwhelmed with the project you have in front of you. And the way I think is really good to help get through that is just make your daily goals smaller. Like I wrote the vast majority of my book after I set the goal of 100 words a day. And 100 words is next to nothing. It takes you 10, 15 minutes to write 100 words. It's so little, but just having that small of a goal and being content with getting at least that much done helped motivate me and discipline myself to actually just get to doing that little bit every day. And more often than not, I got more done. And so that's how I've dealt with it.
So I came across an article a long time ago in a writer's magazine, and the guy goes, "Write crap." And I went, yes, yes. And that's what I think when I'm sitting there going, I don't know. And it's like, well, what's happening? What's happening? They fly to the moon. I don't know. But it's write crap because you're going to have to edit it anyway. Just keep going and write the crap.
And that word vomit, right? Like just get it out on the page. All right, well, we heard a little bit in there about what helps to motivate and inspire you. So we're gonna go to Hannah and Annika for what inspires you to write.
Sure. For years, what inspired me to write was the fact that I get a lot of ideas that I want to turn them into books so I can read them and so others can read them. And then just a few years ago, my writing took on a higher purpose. The characters in the books I was writing were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I realized that I could write these books in a way that without being preachy or boring, while entertaining people, making them laugh, giving them super fun storylines, I could just help strengthen faith in God and soften hearts toward this particular church, make people curious, build bridges of understanding. And so far, so good. Professional trade reviewers who are not familiar with that church have commented on the faith in these books, and they especially liked how in the time travel romance, I had a focus on science without straying from faith in God, is how they put it. And my audiobook narrator, this one should be coming out an audiobook, I think, next month. When she auditioned for the book, she told me that she noticed there were religious elements in my book, and she said, "I love Jesus too," and we just connected over that. We're different religions, but we both just really respected each other's. I love her voice acting, and she loves this book and wants it to reach a lot of people. And a lot of the time, authors are asked, and authors ask other authors, how do you stay motivated to write? And I think for most of us, the idea that I get ideas and I have a gift for writing, so I should use that gift. I should get books out there. It's not quite enough. That it leaves us asking, how do you stay motivated to write? Because the moment my books took on a higher purpose, that was when I changed from writing every few months to 5 or 6 days a week, or writing or doing all the related tasks. And the higher purpose doesn't have to be religious. It can be, I really want to cheer people up. I have people that are close to me going through super hard things, but I've noticed when I'm able to make them laugh, it takes a burden off their shoulders. I want to do that for more people and help them see the funny in life. Or educational. Maybe I write a children's book set in China, and I'm passionate about children, US children, learning about this culture and gaining a love for it. But I think once a different passion combines with the passion for writing, you're just inspired and motivated to write all the time.
Yeah, no, I love that. And yeah, her books definitely are awesome examples of faith without being preachy. So I love that. Yeah, for me, what inspires me to write is just people and stories. Like I believe that everyone has a story to share. And so I love that and I want to be able to share my stories too. And yeah, I think there's a lot of power in sharing our stories.
Awesome. All right. Sheriff, so we're going to come back to you. What is one thing that you love about writing, and what's one thing that's hard about it?
So, what I love about writing is getting to create my own stories because I'm always being like, as I'm reading, oh, I love that idea, but I don't like how they implemented it. Or I like this. Or what if you had these two things together? Like, wouldn't that be so much fun? And so I like being able to create the stories that I really want to read. And sometimes you find stories that are really, really close, that really hit with you. And then other times you're seeing through books and you're like, nope, nope, nope. So you get to do what you love and make the stories that you love. The thing that I find hardest about writing is like you were saying, consistency. Having to set that goal and make it a habit because it's so easy to get an idea and start off and then you're like 20 pages in and you're like, ooh, I have another idea, or I'm not sure about this anymore, or I'm just having a hard time, and you don't want to keep going with it. And so that's the hardest part, is being able to sit down and just keep at it until you've finally finished something.
Everything when it's a job becomes tedious at some point, right?
Yes.
Okay, Marion, what are your favorite books? Are you inspired by any particular author's writing style?
Okay, my favorite books happen to be, and you know, I'm older. Okay, so The Phantom Tollbooth is one of my favorites, and Norton Juster, just the wordplay, the puns, loved it growing up. I've had one of his. I mean, I've had that book in my possession since 7th grade. And my son a few years back gave me the 50th anniversary one. So there you go. I love the Enchanted Forest Chronicles, and we could just go on and on with all of those that I love. I do love Patricia C. Reedy, who wrote Enchanted Chronicles, because it's such cleverness of the main characters. And then I've gone on to read a couple of some of her other ones. Again, just love it. Then, okay, so I happen to like picture books. And so Stephen Kellogg and his illustrations where the pictures tell a story as you're getting into the words. And then Ruth Heller, who her illustrations, I don't know if y'all know some of them, Mini Luscious Lollipops and Kites Sail High and that kind of thing. Chickens Aren't the Only Ones. But her illustrations are so bright and so fun to look at even. So there you go. Oh, did you say favorite genre? No, favorite books, inspired. Okay, got it.
Yeah, awesome. Hannah, what messages do you want readers to receive from your book?
Yeah, so just a few main messages I would say is one, the book is tailored to young women hoping to serve a mission, so just to give them the tools to be prepared. But also just for anyone who reads it, probably a female reader, but just that they have worth as a daughter of God and to be confident in themselves, whatever they choose to do, mission or not. Yeah, and just to have a sense of like faith, living faith can be fun, that it doesn't always have to be this really hard thing that, yeah, you can have fun with it too. So
That's awesome. Okay, Chris and Annika, we're going to come to you and ask, how do you respond to constructive feedback and criticism from beta readers or editors? Because it's got to be hard. Chris, you want to go first?
Sure. So I've had the mentality that the reader is always right, but they're not always professionals at showing it. And because the feelings and the responses that the readers have whenever they're reading my work, those are their genuine feelings and responses. And so it's like, all right, the way you're feeling is correct, because that's what my book has done to you. Now, they're not always sure how to pinpoint what from my book was doing that for them. And so a lot of times when it comes to responding to criticism, it's me trying to get to the bottom of what they're really trying to convey to me about my story and what might need to be done. Sometimes, of course, there are things that just come down to personal preference. And it's like, all right, well, that's a personal preference thing. There's nothing against that. But for the most part, I always try to listen to anything that someone says to me about my book and just my writing, because I just try to assume you're correct. And the vast majority of the time, when I finally understand what they're trying to convey to me, I'm like, yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you so much. I'm going to fix that. So that's how I do it.
That's awesome. So you might have heard earlier, all of our authors on the panel today are members of the writers group that meets here at the library. So Chersti, what are the benefits of joining a writers group? What do you like about the Spanish Fork Library writing group?
So I joined the writers group. I saw it when I was looking for my kids for an activity at the library, but at that time I was like really in a bubble. I didn't have a lot of people to talk about writing with. And so what I love about it is just getting to be with other writers, talk about it. Some writers groups are a little bit more strict on making sure that you bring something and everyone reads and critiques everyone. Ours is a little bit more of, we do that, but we also just work on writing prompts and talking and whatever it is that people need to talk about, whether it's about the editing process or how to get published or writing itself, or if they have something specific that they're working on that they're stumped on. And so I love just being able to have a place to come and talk to other writers and get to interact in that way.
Anyone else on the panel that wants to talk about what you've gained from the writers group or what you like about it?
Yeah, so I think just kind of everything, yeah, she said for sure. And also just writing, you know, sometimes when you have a passion and are really nerdy about it, it's like people who don't do it are not as interested or whatever. And so the good thing about writing group is like everyone's interested in writing, everyone's passionate about it. So it's fun to have that community and to be able to bounce off ideas and just have fun talking about writing. So
I think too, it's also a matter of writing is by yourself, generally speaking. And so once you have a group, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, look, it's people. Whoa, cool.
Okay. So do we have any questions from any audience members that we want to ask our panelists? Any burning thoughts?
So has anyone here tried published versus self-published?
Okay, so we have the self-published. Do you want to take self-published first? And then I think you said you were traditionally.
I'm self as
Okay.
well.
So let's do self first and then we'll do traditional.
Were you wondering specifically if someone has tried both?
Well, I'm kind of interested in the differences between the two because I've researched some of both aspects, but I've noticed lately a lot in the self-publishing area that there's been problems with people flooding markets with AI books or with the Kindle Unlimited garbage that, you know, shoves, you know, real writers' books way far down on the list and nobody sees it because people are just publishing garbage and sticking it on there to get their one set per read or whatever it is. So I've noticed that there's some of those problems. I'm wondering if that's something that you guys have seen a lot and if you would still, you know, suggest self-publishing as opposed to traditional publishing or the other way around.
I would suggest in self-publishing hiring editors because yeah, you can post it online and share your book without having someone edit it. And yeah, sometimes I go read samples and I'm like, that's not great. But I'm also a little saddened by some of the traditionally published books that I start reading and I'm like, if my editor got hold of this or if I got to pay to read this, I would tell them to change this and that and this and wait, isn't it? Don't don't they have editors who know all of those things at every publishing house? But yeah, for sure, I would say, yeah, actually get editors and make sure it's really good. And even getting an editor doesn't guarantee it will be super well written. If your writing to begin with is not that great, and then they come in and edit, and then you have to go through the edits and decide what to do about them, and they haven't just magically said you should change the wording to this. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they're just saying like this needs changing, and then as you change it, it still may not be all that great. So it is rough. Yeah. And
I can also say something to self-publishing, because I'm going down the self-publishing route, and what really made me decide to do that was I learned that nowadays, between the self-publishing world and the traditional publishing world, you have to do all of your own advertising, marketing, even in traditional publishing nowadays. And so that had me like, all right, so I don't really want to go through the headache of submitting my manuscript to as many different publishers as possible and find an agent or anything like that. And it is really a frustration with the whole AI books flooding markets and things like that. And I think the way to deal with that is kind of in your marketing, and which is something you're going to have to deal with in either way. And so it's really about how you strategize, how you're getting your book out there, and getting people to understand you are one of those real writers. So that's my thoughts on that.
So I have something to say as well. And I would say, yes, self-publishing is definitely a path you can take. I like listening to podcasts by other writers, and even like Brandon Sanderson addresses this issue in a lot of his podcasts. Is he completely agrees that there are people who should just self-publish, because we all know the horror stories of people who have become incredibly famous, even Stephen King, who gets rejection after rejection after rejection at publishing houses. Just because you get rejected by a publishing house doesn't mean you're not a good writer. Most people who have published through traditionally have usually gone through lots and lots of rejections before they ever get picked up. And the publishing houses have become more stringent on who they pick up. They are picking up less authors less often. And so self-publishing allows you to get your work out there. And like you were saying, it comes down a lot of it to the marketing. The people who are just flooding with AI books, they're not going to have the marketing. And so it's about getting yourself out there. I am barely getting to the point where I would start looking into editors or into trying to find an agent or a publishing house as I'm finishing up my first book. But I have already started a blog and I'm trying to get some social media presence. So I have a social media site so that I can start to get my writing out there and my views out there and start to garner an audience before I publish, so that people can know who I am.
For me, it was a matter of, I'd been doing that, submitting, but when you're submitting and you find out, oh yeah, they don't want you to submit to anybody else, and they'll tell you in 6 months whether or not, or a year, it may take up to a year. And for them to even mention it, oh, and if we don't say yes in 6 months, then, never mind, and you just send it to somebody else. And it's like, really? I just felt like I didn't have time for that. I'm not young. I've got things to do, people to see, places to go. And so to a certain extent, it was a matter of, I want this out there, and I want it out now and not next week. And y'all probably have seen some of those YouTube musicians who have become famous because of the YouTube or the TikTok or the whatever. And people just swamp them at any time they hear their concerts, and they became famous from YouTube. Well, maybe there's not a lot of us authors who are singing our books on YouTube, but there are ways. I've got some indie authors that I follow madly. Susan K. Quinn, for one, she is a rocket scientist and she's written several sci-fi books. And I think I've got almost all of them, except that was a few years back. So I may not have almost all of them anymore. I got a great deal. And I've seen indie authors where, oh, look, the first book is free. I'll read this. And within the first chapter, I was done. It was obviously one of those that they just blew onto the page and then they shoved it up. And but still, oh my gosh, you get that in traditional publishing too. The blue ones.
Yeah, I've definitely seen
I
that.
don't know how to write that down for closed captioning, but there it is.
In fact, I don't buy books even at the bookstore without reading a page or two first.
So you have to choose. They will not do your marketing for you. As they've already said, one way or the other, you have to be the marketer. It's the writing. You know, what do you want to do?
So yeah, you guys all talked about getting your product out there, right? And marketing. How do you do that? And what has worked? What hasn't? What are some ideas?
Well, I'm just starting in this stage, so some of you probably have better ideas, but I noticed one thing as I was starting to look into it and what to do is I actually know some authors who started with YouTube channels talking about writing and books and things like that, and then became published. I decided to go with a blog. I felt I did not want to videotape myself, even be a vlogger. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go with a blog. But even with something like a blog or social media to connect to that, or whatever, or just a website where you put up news or things like that, it all takes time. So if it's a route that you want to go down, you need to start it as early as possible, because even with a blog, it takes like 6 to 8 months before you start to get traction. And then it takes a couple of years before you gain a real audience. So if you're looking at your writing and it's like, oh, well, I'm not ready to be published yet. That's okay. Start getting yourself out there, because by the time you get to the point where you feel ready to propose a book to a agent or publishing house, or to start editing it to feel like you can get it out there online, or to self-publish, then you will hopefully have at least a marginal following of people who already know you that you can announce it to. You're not, built-in readership. You're not just hoping that people will find your book.
I started with ebooks thinking, yeah, okay, that's the cheapest, easiest way. I think Amazon at the time that I started, they were actually wanted money for changing it, into a physical book or something. I don't remember. But I started out with ebook, figured, okay, fine, there, let's see what happens. And then I turned them into physical books. Oh my heck, what a big difference. It made a big difference, just so y'all know. It made a big difference. I was getting anywhere from $5-ish a month for ebooks. And then the moment some of these became physical, suddenly, the very first month, 500. But then it went down, of course. But anyway, so it fluctuates. It's a big diff between $5 and 500. So yeah, that's one way. If any of y'all are performers, get onto Timpanogos Storytelling Festival, so you can have your books in the fanfare. It's one of those, where can I put these? And you just got to be ready to think where. I've seen independent authors take their books. Okay, we used to live in Oregon, and along the coast, there were these restaurants. So we stopped at a restaurant, and in the, by the cash register, a person I had met, an author I had met, had the books right there. They'd gone through to all of these restaurants and said, hey, this is a book. It was historical fiction, I think, or nonfiction. Anyway, it was good stuff. And it was just right there, perfect for that book. So what's perfect for yours, you know? Fun stuff.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
I can keep asking questions if I don't know because I got thousands. So
Annika, where are your books available?
Oh, they are. I actually do have links here to my website and where you can order them directly. You can also find them on Amazon as paperback and ebook, and hopefully soon as audiobook. One of them.
okay, next question.
Yeah, go.
Beta readers. Did you guys use beta readers? Where did you find them? And were they just like friends and family, or did you actually like find people that say, yes, I'm a beta reader, I've read, X number of novels or whatever? Is that, yeah, where did you guys do that for?
I'll answer. Cause yeah, it's kind of funny because she was one of my beta readers. So I actually met her at a writing conference we both went to. And so that's kind of how I knew she was a really good writer. She's awesome at grammar. So I asked her, and then I asked about 5 other people, had about, 5 beta readers. I did have like one was a family member, and I just tried to pick in my social circle who fit either my target audience or was really good at writing or had gone on a mission since I was writing about a mission. So that was kind of my process. So yeah, just within kind of my social circle for me. But
I can also answer that. So I had a paid beta reader, and I had just gone to Fiverr.com, and because there's lots of them, and I felt like the prices were pretty reasonable, and so I went with one, and it was really good. I got like 5-6 whole pages of feedback going over all sorts of different topics, like the main characters, the plot, and the world and all of that. And so that was a really great resource to help kind of straighten things out that were a little bit weak. I did also have family members read, which is kind of weird. I mean, you would expect them to be biased. I try not to expect them to be biased because they're family. And I know I had my younger brother read the first draft of this book, and he loved it. And I can't hardly believe it because it was the first draft, and so it was terrible compared to what it is now. But I like Fiverr and all the amount of options there are there, and the people on there know what they're doing and they give good feedback. That's what I used.
So there are also websites that do this. There's a couple famous ones that I looked up, and I started using one that I'll go back to once I'm ready to my final revisions done, where you can either pay a premium price to be able to put it up, or if you don't have money, you can actually get points through reading other people's works and critiquing it, and then you get points so that you can put your own work up, and then you can get critiques. And the site that I was using also just had introduced this year a beta reader where you go into the forum and you ask for beta readers, and you send your work out, the complete work, instead of posting it by like chapters to the whole site, to individuals who are willing to read and give you feedback. So there are websites where you can find people who like to critique and help other people out that way.
I would say people and people who know people. So I haven't, these are pretty cool suggestions for me to hear. But at the same time, I haven't paid anyone for beta, to beta read. We've swapped manuscripts. And so I reached out to a friend, to someone who I think maybe we were in the same ward at BYU for a little bit. But she knows my older sister much better because they both studied editing. And my older sister does not have time to go through my books. So, but this friend of hers, she also writes and is trying, to get an agent, to get traditionally published. And so we swapped manuscripts, and that was super helpful. And then at the writing conference, that's where I've also found a few more beta readers, and here and there I find yes, I will have my family look through the manuscript, those who feel like they have the time. And I'm finding that my sister, who at first, younger sister, felt like she didn't have much feedback and she only had a little bit. And even in spite of that, she read both of these, and this is the one I planned to publish first. And when she read this one, she said, "This one's ready. I don't know why, and I don't know why this one's not, but this one is ready." And then my beta reader tore this apart, and that was really good and really helpful. And then I've actually seen my younger sister progress in her beta reading skills on the next book, where she's actually making more and more comments. And again, as Christopher was saying earlier, when they notice, when they say you should change this to that, they are right. That's something that's changing. And on occasion, I can say, I don't like what you're saying, but you are pointing out that I do need to make a change. And so even the family members can be helpful if they do say more than just, "This is a great book."
I will say, so I beta read. And I beta read through websites and for people I know personally. So either way, I think just find readers. Like if you find somebody, I read hundreds of books a year. And so if I like they're saying, if I read it and just sometimes I'll have really specific, like, oh, this did not work. But sometimes it's just like, that didn't feel right. It didn't read right. Something is off. So find especially the reader of the books you're writing, right? So somebody, if you're writing a science fiction, go find somebody who's read 500 science fiction books, and they're going to know what's good, bad, or ugly about the book you're writing, and have feedback, because they have just so much experience and data to pull from the books that they've read over the years.
Are all of y'all authors, writers, authors? I see you have teen boot camp, teen author boot camp.
I actually do have a question. You guys were mentioning something about a writing conference. I've been trying to find places to go, like Teen Author Boot Camp, and I'm just wondering, how do you find those places?
I would really just Google like Utah Writer Conference if you want to do it nearby.
Okay.
There's LDS PMA specifically for Latter-day Saint creators. That's where we met. There's Life, the Universe, and Everything. There are at least 4 kind of here in Provo or Salt Lake area.
Nice. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would, like she said, I'd recommend the LDS PMA conference if you're interested it's more Christian focused, but writing in general, and they're opening like a youth section more this year. I heard doing more with younger people. Anyway, so I think it's been really helpful. And they talk a lot about self-publishing versus traditional publishing, and it's like some Christian stuff, but then practical skills, and it's really good. So recommend it to everyone.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay, so not the teen anymore.
No,
Okay,
this was a while ago.
yeah. What's your genre?
Dystopian.
Okay, so YA or?
Young adults.
Okay, the reason is I'm asking is because there's also WIFR. I think that's what they call them, WIFYR, WIFR.
Okay.
And I stumbled upon them, and their whole point is to get you writing well and getting your book out there, kind of a thing. You can look them up. They've got all of these different conferences and little conferences and Zoom call conferences, and LDS PMA has their pre stuff going on. We've discovered that if we volunteer, we get in free to a lot of these things. So that's what we do.
I would mention LDS PMA. I realized this after becoming a volunteer, that their goal is really to help creators. And when I say creators, it's writers, musicians, artists, kind of an umbrella of people, help them become professionals. And so there is a lot about how do you self-publish, how do you do this and that. There are actually not a lot of writer's craft classes. So if you want more of that, some of the other conferences would be the ones to check out, but there are some here, and then some pretty great stuff. And there are also things like you can sign up to have someone go through the first chapter of your book and give you a critique. You can sign up to practice a fast pitch. So it is a really good conference, just so long as it's not that you specifically want just the writer's craft stuff.
Thank you.
League of Utah Writers is also a group, and then because of your level, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. So there you go.
There are also some authors who do online like classes and conferences, kind of. Some of them are expensive, and there's also places like Masterclass has a writer's one. And so those are a little bit more expensive, but you can get some of these things online as well. So, and have you ever heard of Writer's Digest?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so they have lists of authors, publishers, conferences, all sorts of things like that. Websites, that's how I found most of the websites that I use is through them.
That's awesome. Thank you.
That's out there in the publishing world, you have the traditional houses. You also have the self-publishing, but you also have those that prey upon authors. I think I feel that way, that offer all this fun stuff, and they charge for this, and they charge for that, and they charge for this, and people are paying thousands of dollars to have things done for them, and they're not really. I find sometimes that they're kind of like, it's iffy that they're really helping you. You've got the vanity publishing where they go, hey, you bring your book to us and we'll publish your book, and it's like, it's not always legit. It's not always up on the, it's like, oh man, so have you ever run into those? Do you have problems with those? I know they're out there, and I see them, as Marion's been working on this and everything else, we see them all the time. We hear people who are trying to put together their book, and they go, oh yeah, I've joined this, and you hear, and it cost me this much, it cost me $5,000 for an editor, and it cost me, and we're like, what? And so it's kind of scary just because they're out there. So I don't know.
I can answer that a little bit. Yeah, I've had just from my social media posting on Instagram trying to promote my book, I've had a number of Instagram pages reach out to me, and they've been like, hey, we'd love to promote your book on our page. You can DM us for prices or whatever. And like in the first one that reached out to me had like 1 million followers on Instagram. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like, or like 1.2 million. And I was like, dang, that's a lot. And so we had a little bit of a chat, and I'm like, well, I'm not really selling it just yet, but I'll remember you when I do start that. Because I thought, man, this is neat. And then another one reached out to me, and then another one reached out to me. And I finally went and looked on their pages, and I noticed something really weird about all these author book promotions that they were posting. They have all these followers, 1 million followers or more, and there was basically 0 comments on anything that they put out. And that tipped me off. That had me like, these are like bots, just bot-filled accounts. And so there are little things like that to really watch out for, because there are a lot. And normally they'll reach out to you. There's very few that are going to reach out to you and be genuine and have like a real following. I hope one day that does happen. That would be cool. But I think you really have to be the one who finds the authentic ones who are happy to be reached out to be given like a sample or your book or whatever. And then they can like review it, and they've got actual people listening to them and responding.
So with that as well is resources like Writer's Digest, and there's a few other places you can go to where they keep records of some of these things. And like he said, you should be having to find it. If you're self-publishing, you have to find the editor and the people. They shouldn't be coming to you with these package deals of, if you pay this much, you'll get this wonderful thing. It's like, no, if it's a job, they should be offering you this service, and they should have a track record of, I've worked with these authors and this is what I do. And, And so things like Writer's Digest can help, and like just doing your homework and your research is they should have some sort of social media or online presence that this is their job to do, that they are an editor and here's their list of credentials, and this is an artist and here's their list of credentials. This is where they graduated from and these are the authors they work with and things like that. And if you are going traditional publishing, self-publishing, you have to go and find and pay for your editor and everything. But if you are going traditional publishing and they say they are a publishing house, then you should not be putting forward any money. They will ask you to do your own marketing, but they should be fronting all the money if they are publishing your book. If you are publishing your book, you pay for the editor and the artist and typesetter, that sort of thing. If they say they are a publishing house, then they should be fronting all the money. So don't ever believe anyone that comes to you and says, oh, if you pay us $500, then we'll publish your book. Those are always scams.
If I could add just a little to that and also tie in with the question of like traditional versus self-publishing. I submitted my book at one point to be traditionally published. It got rejected, so for a little bit I was trying to figure out, do I self-publish? And there's also like hybrid publishing, like what we talked about, where you do parts yourself, but then you pay for other parts to be done. But I kind of learned like, I'm a beginner, but I learned like a lot of those companies are just trying to get your money and stuff. So you have to be careful. So what helped me was like networking, like remembering the contacts. I like got business contacts at the conference. And so I ended up picking one of those editors to like edit my book instead of some of these online ones that I had no idea, didn't trust. And then she ended up helping me get my book traditionally published or on the way to be. Anyway, so like what helped me was just like networking and doing lots of research, because there's a lot of scams I encountered. But
I'd also say it's really helpful to compare prices. Through simple Google searches, I found multiple places that said you shouldn't have to pay more than $500 or so for a cover design. Maybe expect $200 to $500. Ingram Spark is my self-publishing platform. You can sign up, you're not spending any money, and they have a lot of different resources and tips. But then when I've searched editors and found different editors looking for the ones who are into my genre, I can see with most of them how much they charge, and it's normally 1 cent per word or 2 cents per word. And you can actually ask them, most of them, for sample edits. So instead of just saying, going in blindly and yeah, this person you found on the internet, paying them the money to have them edit your work, and you don't actually know if they're going to be all that great. I was able to get sample edits from several different editors. Some of them will do a pre-sample edit of the first 3 pages of your book, some of the first 5, some of the first 10. So it's not completely comparable, but that way I could go through and say, I really like what they're doing, and this is a great editor, and they get my story. And then I could pick the right one.
Okay, if we don't have any more formal questions, we're gonna wrap it up and then come on down and talk to them. They have things at their table, and come and see what they've got to share. Thank you so much, panelists, for sharing. This was awesome.